These are 8 people in history who had it all. Money, fame, power. But for one reason or another, they lost it all. Let's start with some basic ones and move to ones that get increasingly more insane. Number 1. Howard Hughes. All right, let's talk about Howard Hughes, the guy who had it all and then, well, kind of lost it, including himself. Hughes was a billionaire industrialist, aviator, and filmmaker, basically the original do-it-all guy. He had more money than you could count, flew planes, made movies. He was living the dream. But then, plot twist, he slowly turned into a real-life Howard the Hermit. As the years went by, Hughes developed some pretty serious mental health issues, and instead of hanging out in his mansions or private jets, he decided the best place to live was total isolation. I mean, this guy had all the cash in the world, but by the end, he was more likely to be found obsessing over germs in a dark room than enjoying his billionaire status. Imagine being so rich you could buy anything, and then choosing to spend your last years hidden away, unrecognizable, like the ultimate game of hide and seek, but without the seek part. It's like Hughes hit the jackpot, and instead of celebrating, he just folded himself up and vanished. Number 2. Mark Twain, also known as Samuel Clemens, the guy who made the world laugh but couldn't seem to stop his bank account from crying. Twain was one of the most famous authors and humorists of his time. You'd think someone that clever with words would be just as clever with money, right? Well, nope. Twain managed to lose most of his fortune because he thought investing in wild inventions was a solid financial plan. Spoiler alert, it wasn't. He basically threw his cash at any gadget with a "this might work" sticker on it, which led to some pretty spectacular fails. Eventually, he had to declare bankruptcy, but did that stop him? Nah. Twain hit the lecture circuit, traveling around, telling jokes to dig himself out of debt. So, instead of retiring with a stack of cash, he ended up with a stack of bills and a suitcase full of jokes. Basically, Twain went from rich and famous author to stand-up comedian trying to pay off his Amazon Prime shopping addiction. Number 3. Napoleon Bonaparte. Napoleon Bonaparte, the guy who literally thought he could conquer the world, until the world said, "Nah, we're good." This guy went from being the Emperor of France, strutting around Europe like it was his personal playground, to, well, let's just say things didn't exactly go as planned. After losing the Battle of Waterloo, Napoleon's dream of world domination came to a screeching halt, and instead of ruling an empire, he got shipped off to the ultimate time-out spot, a tiny, lonely island called St. Helena. Imagine going from commanding armies to living in a place where your biggest opponent is boredom. It's like he went from being the most powerful guy in Europe to a guy who can't even get room service. So, there he was, stuck on this remote rock, living in relative poverty and isolation, probably reminiscing about the days when he wore fancy hats and ordered people around. Now, his biggest excitement was probably wondering if the seagulls would show up today. Talk about a downgrade. From emperor to island hermit in one epic fail swoop. Number 4. Marie Antoinette. Marie Antoinette, the queen who lived like a Kardashian before it all came crashing down. She had it all: fancy dresses, extravagant parties, and enough cake to feed an empire. But then the French Revolution rolled in like, "Nah, Marie, we're done with your whole let them eat cake attitude." Once the revolution hit, it was game over for Versailles life. She went from sipping champagne in golden goblets to being imprisoned in a drafty cell, stripped of all her bling. It was like going from living in a 5-star hotel to being stuck in a budget motel, except this one didn't come with free breakfast and the checkout was via guillotine. In the end, the only cutting-edge thing in her life was, well, the guillotine itself. Marie went from queen to a headless wonder real quick. Talk about a fall from grace. One day you're ruling France, the next you're leaving the palace without so much as a souvenir. I hope you're enjoying this video. Please like and maybe consider subscribing so YouTube will recommend you more interesting videos. It's a win-win. Number 5. Nero. Nero, the OG Roman emperor who basically turned living large into an Olympic sport. This guy was throwing parties like every day was his birthday, all while Rome was, literally, burning down around him. If Instagram existed back then, he'd be the guy posting selfies with captions like, "Let them hate, as long as they fear me," while chaos was happening in the background. But plot twist. His lavish lifestyle and tyrannical vibes eventually caught up with him. Rebellion broke out, and Nero suddenly found himself not so popular anymore, like that moment when your followers realize you've been faking all those brand deals. He fled Rome faster than an influencer running from a PR scandal, but things didn't end well. Instead of making a grand comeback, Nero went full drama mode and, well, he offed himself. So, from emperor to outcast, Nero went from owning Rome to, well, owning absolutely nothing. Talk about going from ruling the world to can't even rule my own life. Number 6. Josephine Baker. Josephine Baker, legendary entertainer, singer, dancer, and all-around icon. She wasn't just shaking things up on stage, she was shaking up history. I mean, she basically invented the global superstar thing before it was even cool. But, spoiler alert, even legends aren't immune to bad money decisions. After years of dazzling audiences around the world and becoming a civil rights activist, Josephine didn't exactly have a solid financial plan. Let's just say her financial skills were the equivalent of leaving your debit card at the bar every weekend. She ended up having to sell her beautiful estate, and despite being world famous, she nearly died broke. So, take note, future stars. Fame doesn't pay the bills forever. Unless you've got a backup plan, you might end up like Josephine, adored by millions, but having to sell your stuff just to keep the lights on. Number 7. King Ludwig II of Bavaria. King Ludwig II of Bavaria, basically the original castle influencer. This guy was obsessed with building castles, like the real-life version of someone addicted to Sims, but with actual stone and mortar. He built extravagant palaces all over Bavaria, sparing no expense. Think Versailles, but on steroids. But, surprise, surprise, all that castle building wasn't cheap. Ludwig ran up so much debt, even his royal accountant was like, "Bro, you've got to chill." Eventually, the Bavarian government decided enough was enough. They declared him insane, probably after he tried to add a 5th moat to his already 12-moat palace, and they booted him off the throne. He spent his final days under house arrest in one of his own creations, which, hey, not a bad place to be grounded, until he mysteriously died. Was it an accident? Was it a conspiracy? Or did he just try to build one too many castles and the stress finally got him? Either way, Ludwig's castle obsession might have cost him the crown and his sanity. Number 8. Bobby Fischer. Bobby Fischer, the chess genius who checkmated his way to the top, then kinda flipped the board over and walked off. Fischer was once the world chess champion, the GOAT of the chess world. People thought he had a supercomputer for a brain. But after reaching the peak, he didn't just take a break, he went completely off the rails. He started spouting wild conspiracy theories, embraced some very controversial political views, and disappeared faster than a knight jumping over pawns. The guy who used to be celebrated for his mind was suddenly famous for all the wrong reasons. He ended up living out his later years in obscurity, broke, and probably yelling at pawns in the park. In the end, Fischer lost not just his money, but also his once legendary reputation. Checkmate, life. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe. And also, be sure to check out this video where I go over the dumbest laws to ever exist. Or this other video where we discuss the strangest mating rituals in the animal kingdom.